This woman just went to the police station to clean up, and yet she saw the mistakes in the police's handling of the case. She dropped the lollipop in her hand, and her mind started racing. She instantly realized that the police had mistaken the victim for the murderer. She crossed out the word suspect and wrote victim underneath. The next day, Jack, the sergeant in charge of the case, was furious. Luckily, there were security cameras at the station. Ella's dance moves from last night were caught on tape, but there's no rule that says janitors can't listen to music and dance while cleaning. The lady in charge didn't have time to joke with her. She said interfering with a criminal case is punishable by jail. Ella looked innocent and said she was just helping to fix a mistake. How could she be interfering with a criminal case? Jack was very angry. He said he'd been a cop for decades, and it wasn't his turn to be told what to do by a cleaning lady. But the female leader ignored him. She took out the file and asked Ella to explain. Next is Ella's performance time.
You've got a dead body. I'm assuming you think this lady offed her husband, but that's not possible. Look at this room. All of these pillows are evenly spaced with alternating colors. Check out these shelves. Those objects are perfectly sized. Even the choice of metals is consistent. This house is immaculate. The owner is a tidiness freak, except all of these curtains are fastened with a tie back except for one for some reason. You're telling me this woman who meticulously arranges her couch pillows doesn't care about her curtains? So the tie back must have been used for something else. See, look, you've got hairs stuck to the chair leg. Somebody put tape around it, ripped it off, the glue stayed, and trapped the little bits.
The samples are at the lab. We found no tape at the scene.
That means someone was tied up with the curtain cord and taped to the chair around their ankles. And since there are no marks on the victim's wrist, it wasn't him who was tied up, which means there was a third person.
The hostess was just a victim. Ella's reasoning was flawless. Even Jack, who's been on the case for decades, couldn't find a flaw, but he's still not convinced. He said he needed to investigate the neighborhood security footage to really prove there was a third person at the scene.
We have the surveillance footage. A woman was seen entering the house at the time of the murder.
The third person!
But in the end, Ella still broke the rules. Jack ordered his men to put her in a holding cell, but he couldn't be happier. He had to admit that Ella's reasoning was correct. They had to reopen the whole case and find another victim as soon as possible. Luckily, the CCTV near the crime scene showed a girl who was suspected to have visited the scene on the day of the murder. Despite the girl's denials, she had no alibi. Just as Jack was about to pinpoint the girl as the first suspect, Ella, who was about to sign a non-disclosure agreement, just casually glanced at the computer and saw that the video was not from the day of the murder. Jack was furious when he saw her. The case was finally moving forward, but the female leader didn't care. Instead, she hoped that Ella could point out what's wrong with it. It turns out that the wind in the video should be from the southeast, but in this time of the year, the wind in the city should be from the northwest. There's a church behind the girl. Historically, priests would face the church to the east so that the sun would be behind them and they would look more like God. And then by looking at the leaves in the video, you can deduce the direction of the wind.